Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Bava Metzia. We are up to Perek Vav Mishnah Dalid. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov Chana bat Miriam Sason ben Ryan Yehoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam began Eden Amen and Leavdi ben Chaim Nechaim v'derefua shenemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betוך שעה חולי ישראל and החלמה מרב בנימין אור ציון חי ben Dvorah. The Mishnah begins, הסוחר את הפרה לחרוש בה וחרש בבקעה. If someone rents a cow and a plow and agrees with the owner that he will use it to plow on a mountain, but instead he plows in a valley, im nishbara kankan patur, if the plow beam breaks while he is plowing, he is exempt from paying for it. The wooden beam, when we say the plow beam, the Rav explains we're referring to the wooden beam to which the plow's blade is attached. Again, if it breaks while he is plowing, he is exempt from paying for it. Although he did not obey the owner's instructions, the damage cannot be considered his fault, since if he had kept to the agreement and plowed on a mountain where the ground is hard and rocky, the plow would have been even more likely to break. Rather, the damage to the plow is considered an unavoidable accident for which a renter is exempt. Babikav v'charash bahar. However, if the renter agrees to plow in a valley, but instead plows on a mountain, im nishbar kankan chayav, if the plow beam breaks while he is plowing, he is obligated to pay for it because his negligence caused the damage, since if he had kept to the agreement and plowed in a valley where the ground is soft, the plow would probably not have broken. A similar case, ladush bikitnit v'dash bitvua patur, if a person rents a cow and agrees that he will use it to thresh beans. Now, threshing is the removal of the hard shells of grain or beans from the edible kernels. This was done by spreading out the beans or grain and having an animal pull a heavy instrument over them. So if a person rents a cow and agrees that he will use it to thresh beans, but instead he threshes grain, if the cow slips while threshing and is hurt, he is exempt from paying for the damages. Had he kept to the agreement and threshed beans, which are more slippery than grain, the cow would have been even more likely to slip. Therefore, the injury cannot be considered the renter's fault. Ladush bitvua v'dash bikitnit chayav. However, if he agrees to thresh grain, but instead threshes beans, if the cow slips and is hurt, he is obligated to pay for its injury. Because beans are more slippery than grain, and therefore the animal would probably not have been injured if the renter had kept to the agreement and threshed grain. And that is in a Mishnah Dalid. Mishnah A discusses one who overloads a rented animal. If someone rents a donkey and agrees that he will carry a certain amount of wheat on it, but instead he carries barley on it, and because barley is lighter than wheat, he adds more to the load, even though the larger load of barley weighs the same as a smaller load of wheat would have weighed. If the donkey becomes injured, chayav, the renter is obligated to pay for the damage. He is liable only if he adds enough barley so that the load weighs as much as the agreed upon load of wheat would have weighed. If he adds less than that amount, he does not have to pay if the animal is injured. But again, in our case, where he adds enough barley so that the load weighs as much as the agreed upon load of wheat would have weighed, he is obligated to pay for the damage if the donkey becomes injured. Tvua, similarly, if he agreed to carry a certain amount of grain on the donkey, but instead he carries straw on it, and because straw is lighter than grain, he adds to the load, even though the larger load of straw weighs the same as the grain would have weighed. If the donkey becomes injured, chayav, the renter is obligated to pay for the damage. In both these cases, the renter must pay because even though he did not add to the weight of the load, the extra volume is hard for a donkey to bear and likely causes injury. In the next case, the renter did not add to either the weight or the volume of the agreed upon load. Lavi letech chitim. If a person rents a donkey and agrees to carry a letech, a unit of volume of wheat on it, vevi letech sewim, but instead he carries a letech of barley on it, if the donkey is injured, patur, the renter is exempt from paying for the damage. Although he did not obey the owner's instructions, he did not increase the volume of the load and in fact made the load lighter by carrying barley instead of wheat. Therefore, he is not at fault for the animal's injury. However, if the renter adds to the volume of the load and loads enough barley to equal the weight of a lesech of letech of wheat, chayav, he is obligated to pay if the donkey is hurt because it was likely harmed because of the extra volume, like we explained earlier in the Mishnah. The Mishnah now states the law when a renter loads the animal with the material he had agreed to load it with, but adds to the agreed upon load. V'chama yosif al masov v'yeh chayav. And if the renter loads the animal with the agreed upon material, how much must he add to the load to be liable if the animal is injured? Sumchu somer mishum Rabbi Meir. Sumchu says in the name of Rabbi Meir, if he agreed to carry a letech, he is liable if he adds se'ah gamal, is se'ah on a camel, 1/15 of its load. A letech is 90 kav and a se'ah 6 kav. 90 divided by 6 is 15, so 1/15 of its load. For a camel, shlosha kabin lachamor, or 3 kav on a donkey, which is 1/30 of its load. 90 divided by 3, 30. A donkey is weaker than a camel and cannot bear an addition of even 1/30 of its load. If he adds less than this amount, he is not obligated to pay if the animal is injured. And the Rav tells us the halakha does follow the opinion of Sumchus. And that is, Rabotai, today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.